TG Geeks, episode 329, June 7th, 2021, from fantastical realms to dark poetry. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery, sci-fi, comics, film, horror, genre, you name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane, and we're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely, it's getting hot, Phoenix, Arizona.
And I'm Ben Raggington, coming to you from summer.
Yes, exactly.
Summer is here.
Summer is here.
Yes, I mean, even though we've not hit the longest day of the year yet,
it's here.
It's here.
It
the
was
weather's
108 yesterday.
Yeah, the weather is hot. We don't have the monsoon
Ridiculous.
yet. God help us. I'm dreading that.
Oh, no kidding. Well, we have a good show for you this time, so we're just
as opposed to the previous times.
Yeah, they're all bad shows. 328 episodes.
Yeah, they all
of bad
suck.
Shows. Nope.
No, they don't. They're pretty good.
Yeah, I think they are. Just not number one.
Just not number one.
Which has like 300 listens or something like that.
Really?
On YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, I'm
crazy.
depressed. I'm so depressed. I want to hide in a cave now.
Yep. Here we go.
Prepare for hyperdrive.
Meanwhile, in the Hall of Episodes, the Two Gay Geeks are discussing this.
Well, I would say that 300 listens, I don't have to look it up actually how many it has, but over 7 years, we're just coming up on 7 years of this. So it's not too bad. But
No.
It was 12 minutes of craziness.
Well, of nothing.
Yeah,
It
we
was-
really didn't have anything to talk
No,
about.
I mean,
but we started it. We started doing
We
it, and now we're
started
doing
it, yeah.
it still. This time, we are going to talk to Marcy Rockwell, who writes under the name of Marsheila Rockwell, and find out who she is and what she's written and all the kinds of neat stuff about her. Then we have our regular birthday shout-outs, our featured podcast of the week, and our favorite feedback section and regular shout-outs, and maybe something in the second segment.
Definitely something in the second segment.
Okay. Okay, I think I know. But anyway, then we'll have our wacky recap, wacky weekly recap.
Keep going.
We will do a wacky week, blah, blah. And our regular shout outs. And we're just going to get right to it and talk to Marcy right now. And we welcome to the show Marcy Rockwell, who writes under the name Marsheila Rockwell. Welcome, Marcy, to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy Pride.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. So, tell us who you are. Give us the elevator pitch of your life, of how you. I know that your blog says you were born in and grew up in Somewheresville. You know,
Somewheresville.
Yeah, something like that. The unnamed quantity there. So just tell us how you grew up, how you got into writing, what was your impetus to get into writing, and what you got going now.
Well, I learned to read when I was 3.
Oh, wow.
I was always had books. My family was very poor when I was growing up, but somehow we always managed to have at least a few books around, and reading was something that my family just did. So I learned to read when I was 3, and my mom used to tell the story that I came home from preschool and said that now that I had learned how to read, I didn't need to go back.
I'm all grown up now.
That sounds like my niece.
Well, I had learned. Yeah, I learned everything that was important. So
Exactly. Well, my niece came into the kitchen when she was 3 or 4, something like that.
Before my time.
Told my sister, says, I read the book last night. And my sister was like, yeah, okay. And she sat there and read the book to her. And it was unbelievable.
And Summer never needed to go back to school after
Exactly.
that. Okay, yeah,
and
sure.
At 8, she was asked, how old are you? And she says, I am halfway to getting my driver's license.
Oh, my gosh.
So, very precocious child.
sounds like it.
Anyway,
We
this
need
is
more
about
of
you.
We need more precocious girls.
Exactly.
So I grew up in Montana, the last best place.
Aha.
Lately, it's not the last best place. They're,
Yeah.
they're kind of going crazy there, but it's still a beautiful place.
You're approaching that one big P there. So-
Yeah. I realized that and backed off. So I grew up there, went to college there. I got my degree in civil engineering.
Wow.
The reason I did that was because in my mind, I always wanted to write. I had kind of a difficult childhood, and books were my escape.
Right.
So I wanted to be able to create worlds that other people could escape into.
Oh, cool.
And also that I could escape into while I was writing. But, I wanted to do for other people what books had done for me, because in a lot of ways, I think they saved me. And I think that's true for a lot of people.
Exactly.
So-
yeah. We all escaped in some way into a book.
So I always grew up wanting to be a writer, but, they don't give degrees in author. So,
Don't you wish they did?
yeah. So I got my degree in civil engineering because I had this grand plan that I was going to make tons of money and retire early and then just spend the rest of my life writing. Nobody bothered to tell me that civil engineers are the least well-paid of all engineers.
Oh, my.
So, so that was not a good career choice on my part.
Yeah.
So I moved to California. I worked as a professional registered engineer for several years, and then came to Arizona. I got married a couple times, had a few kids, got married again to Jeff. My first published piece of fiction was actually to a pro market. It was Marion Zimmer Bradley's fantasy magazine when that was still being published. That was in 1994 when I was still in college. I'm really conflicted about that now, given all of the stuff that has come out about her. And so I made a lot of money off of that for a story, especially back then, because pro rates were lower. But I took the amount of money that I made from that story and I donated it to RAIN because I just felt so icky.
Mm-hmm.
Then, life kind of got in the way, and I didn't really write too much for a while. And I picked it up again probably around 2002-ish, and I've been writing pretty steadily since then. Got my first book contract in 2005 with Wizards of the Coast.
Oh, cool.
So my first 3 books were in their Eberron setting, which is kind of noir crossed with steampunk. I would say.
That's interesting.
But, with lots of magic, obviously.
Well, obviously, Wizards of the Coast, yeah.
Right. And I actually wrote the only authorized fiction that ties into Dungeons and Dragons Online. So
cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. And I've written a couple of books with Jeff. We wrote a science fiction thriller called Seven Psychos. It's basically psychopaths versus zombies set entirely in Phoenix.
Wow.
Oh, in Phoenix, no less.
Wow. I may have to read that.
I may have to read that one, yeah. Just for the setting.
Yeah. And we went to all the places that we talk about. We drove around, we looked and saw what was there. In our location scouting, we actually went through a cemetery in Mesa and found the grave of Waylon Jennings, of all people.
Really?
So
Yeah.
That made it into the story because I sure didn't expect that.
No kidding.
So, yeah.
So, go ahead, please.
It was, sorry, I lost my place. I do that a lot. I've also written several books that have been contracted and paid for. So I wrote them, I got paid for them, but they never got published because they were tie-in books. And something that happens kind of frequently in the tie-in world is that a licensor gets the rights to an intellectual property, and then distribution falls through. So they get somebody to write a story, they pay them to write the story, and then they aren't able to get the book made and
Interesting.
put it in bookstores. So I actually wrote a trilogy based on Neil Gaiman's Lady Justice comic books.
Interesting.
And I'm super proud of that trilogy. And I'm so bummed that it has not been published yet. And I keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah. It's one of those things. It's nice to get paid, but it's also nice to
get your work
tell
out there.
people, here's what I have done.
and the idea
and people can see it. Yeah.
Well, and playing in Neil Gaiman's universe as well. I mean, to be able to play in that sandbox, that must have been a real treat for you.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool conceit. The idea is that Lady Justice inhabits women who have been wronged so they can take vengeance on those who have wronged them.
Interesting.
So it gets kind of dark, but it also allows you to address some issues.
Oh, yeah.
It was a cool story, and I got to do a lot of different things. One of the things in it that I did in the story that I'm so disappointed that wasn't able to be read, as I talked a lot about Native American issues. The book was set in Wyoming. Mm-hmm. And I am Native American. I'm Chippewa and Métis. And I don't write about those issues too much. I'm starting to write about it more. But I talked about the voting issues. It's really, I know this is politics, but it is in the book, so hopefully it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
But it's really hard to vote out there on reservations,
right?
Because there aren't polling places, so people have to travel for hours sometimes to get to a polling place. So it really disenfranchises Native Americans. So that was one of the things that I talked about in the book, and my intention had been to donate a percentage of the royalties from the book to the Native American Rights Fund, but obviously that's not going to happen. But
Right.
maybe another book down the line.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, it's a shame that so many people are disenfranchised from voting, and not just Native Americans, but a big portion of Native Americans, what we have done to them. I'm kind of passionate about that myself. I have a little bit of Cherokee Indian in me. So
You're from Oklahoma.
And I grew up in Oklahoma, so,
It kind of goes with the territory.
Yeah.
Marcy, you were mentioning some of the things that you worked on, and it included, Seven Psychos that you wrote with Jeff. I've always been fascinated working with another author. Now, I've spoken to people like Kevin Anderson, who's a personal friend of mine. How he's worked with other writers, Frank Herbet and things like that. They'll just write, send things back and forth, and kind of take notes. But you're married to Jeff. So, what kind of dynamic does that take on? And what's involved in co-writing a piece of fiction or anything for that matter? How does that happen?
Well, luckily for us, we're both outliners. That's something that's really important when you write tie-in fiction. In tie-in fiction, it's kind of the reverse of writing original fiction. You have to write a really detailed outline, and then you get paid based on the outline. So you get paid first, and then you write the book, and it's the reverse when you do original stuff. Right? You have to write the book first, and then try to sell it. But you have to start out with a really detailed outline that the licensor can approve to make sure that you're not screwing anything up. So not breaking any of the toys in the sandbox.
Right.
So Jeff and I, we outline everything that we write together. So we hammer out most of our disagreements about things in the outline stage. And we both have different strengths. Jeff is a really good plotter, and that's something that I'm still working to get better at. I'm really linear, and I have trouble sometimes weaving in subplots, but Jeff is really good at that, and I'm more... I'm also a poet, so I do a lot of descriptive writing and that sort of thing. So, but typically our process is one of us will start writing. They'll write to a certain point. They'll pass it to the other person, who will read over what was written before, make changes, and then start writing from that point. Sometimes it's chapter by chapter. And sometimes it's dictated by whoever has the busiest schedule outside of writing the book. We did a book together based on the Mafia 3 video game. And in that one, we actually did it a little bit differently. Jeff wrote the main character point of view, and I wrote the secondary character point of view. So he did all the chapters with the main character, and I did all the chapters with the secondary character. So
interesting,
cool.
Yeah.
So,
but obviously, if we're married, we get along pretty well, and we're pretty good at talking out any kind of disagreements we have, whether it's writing or otherwise. So,
right.
It's a pretty fluid process for us, and I think that we think a lot alike about things, so it makes it easier. I've never collaborated with anybody else. I tried collaborating on a poem with a poet who is a very good friend of mine and whose work I really, really respect, and just couldn't do it. So,
yeah, I would think that poetry is a little bit different animal than
yes,
writing,
writing a work of fiction.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it definitely can be.
So what would you say is your favorite genre to write in? It appears that most of your work has some kind of fantasy or fantastical element to it.
Yes, definitely my favorite is fantasy trending towards the dark side. My stuff is usually pretty dark and twisty.
Ooh, fascinating.
Yeah, I wonder why that would be. I wonder that I think maybe there's some kind of therapy behind that. I mean,
you never know.
I mean, you look to, Brannon Braga of Star Trek. I mean, and his stuff is just disturbing. And I've always wanted to ask him who his therapist was. And if the therapist is doing any good.
These pieces of paper in front of me.
So, yeah, any kind of therapeutic purpose behind that? Behind the dark fantasy?
Well, it's really funny that you should ask that. I was in a car accident in May of 2019, and I developed PTSD after the accident. It's really hard for me to be in a car now, and I feel very sorry for Jeff, who has to drive me everywhere because I'm constantly flinching and squealing. But I'm going to trauma therapy for that. I'm specifically doing EMDR, which is eye movement. I always forget, but it's a type of therapy that's based on the idea that trauma is a physiological response as opposed to a psychological response.
Interesting.
But I recently wrote a poem after a very rough therapy session. So, and it was based on my EMDR session where the narrator of the poem basically ripped off all of her skin, organs, and exposed the skeleton beneath. And then the therapist was very happy and said she'd done a good job.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering if you'd ever used any kind of writing as a means to verbalize anything that was kind of like boiling inside of you, because I just journal from time to time, and I find that when I do that, it helps organize a lot of chaotic thoughts that are in my head. So that's why I was kind of wondering if maybe if you're doing any kind of writing that might help, with any dark issues that might be lurking inside that gray matter of yours.
Mine's dark gray, not just gray.
Yeah, your dark gray matter.
Right.
A lot of my poetry is more horror than dark fantasy, and a lot of it deals with difficult subjects and responses to those subjects. A lot of it deals with abuse and sexual assault issues. So things from my own past that I'm still working through, I guess. So poetry is definitely, kind of an outlet for me. I don't journal because, I don't know, it kind of just, it's hard to journal for personal purposes and then also be writing because, I don't know, the wires get crossed. But poetry is just like for every, angsty teenager, a good outlet. I guess I just a little bit better at it than the teenagers because I can tell some of it.
Have a little more age on them.
For some awards.
Yeah.
All right. So we're up against the time. I'm sorry about that because we had some really great conversation there. So let me ask you this: if people want to find your work, is there any kind of central repository for it? Any kind of website, any kind of social media? How can they find the work of Marsheila Rockwell?
I have a website, www.marsheilarockwell.com. If there's a link there to my blog, which usually has a little bit about what's going on writing-wise, my recent sales, any appearances that we might be making now that we're all vaccinated and conventions are happening again.
Yeah.
Usually I have a little section about personal stuff too. I just actually did a blog post real quick about an anthology that released yesterday called Voices of Varuna that has a story of mine in it about some colonization and assimilation from a Native point of view. So I'm really proud of that one too, so hopefully people will look that up. I'm on Facebook. I have an author page on Facebook. I think it's Marsheila Rockwell author or something like that.
Right.
But I honestly don't update that super often. I usually only update it to post a blog post, so a link to the blog. So if you follow the blog, you're probably fine. I'm most active on Twitter, and I use the handle Marcy Rockwell on there. So if people really want to know what's going on, that's the best place to find me.
Cool.
You will get a lot of Native issues on there. So if you're not interested in that sort of thing, you might want, but you still want to know about my writing, then probably just stick to the blog.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, this has been really great. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yep.
I'm Lizzie.
I'm Eric.
That's not right.
One brain.
We're Cheshire Moon.
And you're listening to the Two Gay Geeks.
I'm kind of proud of this music that I found it.
Right.
I like the other one too that we had, but this one's kind of cool too.
And we can use this one.
Exactly. Well, we could use the other one, but not the one that we got censored for.
No.
The YouTube censored out, and I had to go clear out. Anyway, here's a few selected birthdays for June 7th through June 13th, 2021. Start off with June 7th, Prince. Prince Rogers Nelson. Artist formerly known as Prince. Whatever you want to call him. He was a fantastic musician.
He was quite the artist.
He was. He did a little bit of everything and launched a number of people's careers.
Yes, he did.
And as well as, he was just an interesting individual, let's put it that way. Liam Neeson, actor, many roles, including Qui-Gon Jinn. Some of these we're going to just breeze by because there's so many names on the list this week. Tom Jones, Welsh singer, one of two Welsh singers for Bond films.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Shirley Bassey was.
Of course.
So she was Welsh as well. Carl Urban, actor.
Oh, I love this guy.
Did a few characters on Xena, Warrior Princess.
Yes, he
as
did.
As well as the Hercules and Lord of the Rings and Star Trek as Bones. It is said that his accent he adopted for Bones was so close to D. Kelly's that it moved Leonard Nimoy to tears.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And is a Doctor Who fan.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Bill Hader, actor, voiceover, done a lot of things behind the mic as well as on screen. He was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Of course he was.
In the year that I graduated from high school.
Oh, my.
And then we have Jessica Tandy, actress. She had a part in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And she was brilliant in Driving Miss Daisy.
There's a wonderful story. I know I shared it last year, but it bears repeating. There was, I think it was a Golden Globes award, and Jamie Lee Curtis and her husband were there. And they were sitting there, and she had her back to, I guess, where everybody came in. And her husband looked across and he says, "The most beautiful woman in the world has just walked into this room." And Jamie Lee kind of expected it to be some glamorous who knows who. And she turns around and it was Jessica Tandy.
Wow. Interesting. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And then we have on our list a friend of ours, or a Facebook friend of ours, and we met him, Colin Baker, who is a fabulous guitarist.
Oh my gosh, he was brilliant.
Just brilliant.
Yes.
And Sherry Migdal, who was in Beyond the Impact.
Beyond the Impact. Terrifying. Lovely woman.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Lovely woman, which just shows what kind of a good actor she really is,
Yes.
because she is just terrifying in Beyond the Impact.
Exactly. June 8th, Jerry Stiller, actor, father of Ben Stiller, part of Stiller and Mira, the husband and wife team. They were on the Ed Sullivan Show 36 times.
I believe it.
Yep. Frank Lloyd Wright, architect and eccentric, shall we say, created what is known as the Prairie School movement, utilizing what he termed as organic architecture. Some of his works are just incredible. We have many examples of Wright buildings here in Phoenix, not just homes, but buildings, office buildings, a church, two churches, I think.
Two churches, yeah.
And Taliesin West, which was his winter home here in Arizona.
And I love his fall. I think it's
Falling
called
Waters.
Falling
Yeah.
Waters. Oh,
That is the epitome of the organic architecture that he was.
I would give to live in a house like
oh my
that.
gosh, yeah. Then we have Joan River.
Can we talk?
Actress, comedian, acerbic wit, and one-liners. Did you know in school she studied anthropology?
No, but
Yeah.
at the same time, that doesn't surprise me entirely because the woman was brilliant.
Yep. Phyllis Diller was her mentor, so
I'm not surprised at that either.
I'm not surprised. I mean, some of the
Consider the
same
humor.
similar type of humor, yeah, self-deprecating, a husband that is not seen other than in her deliveries.
And by the time Joan really hit her stride as a comedian, oh my God, she was hilariously funny. Quite blue with her humor, but it was just the most brilliant material imaginable.
And the next one, we get to talk about a favorite movie of ours, Sturgill Simpson, actor and musician. He was a writer and performer of the song "The Dead Don't Die."
Yes, yes,
and was the guitar zombie in the film. I love that film. If you have not, we talk about it every time.
This movie is phenomenal.
If you have not seen it, you have to see it. It is just...
It is one of the best satirical zombie movies I've ever seen.
Really
and
is.
any
It's
movie
great.
that dares to become self-referential.
Oh my God.
It's
Severely
severely
self-referential.
self-referential. You have got to see this movie. It is unbelievably brilliant.
The Dead Don't Die.
And Adam Driver outdoes Bill Murray in Dry Delivery.
Exactly.
The movie. Okay, I know what we're watching
We'll
tonight.
have to watch that.
We have to watch it
I
tonight.
love that film.
The movie's fantastic.
Yes. Then we have James Daryn, actor, big in the 50s and 60s, and the only regular cast member of Time Tunnel to not appear in Land of Giants.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know how he did that, but he must have made Irwin Allen mad or something.
I don't know.
But he had a resurgence of his career when he appeared on DS9 as
That
Vic Fontaine.
did it. That did it.
Became this huge. He was like in 6 episodes and was
It
this
took over.
enormous
I know.
thing.
I mean, it got to the point where, and I wish I had gone to these, but I never did, and I'm so sorry that I didn't. But right at that time of Deep Space Nine, he started to do lounge shows as Vic Fontaine at conventions, and like, oh my God, why didn't I go to these?
Exactly. And Robert Preston, actor, singer,
Toddy.
music man, Victor Victoria, yes, and Last Starfighter, had before he was in Music Man, had never sung.
Really?
Yeah. So
He's not much
he's
of a
not
singer.
a real singer.
Really.
He's
No.
more like Rex Harrison.
Right. He
in his delivery.
He speaks in tone.
Yeah. Colin Baker, actor, Doctor Who, was actually a roommate of David Troughton, who was
That's
his
right.
best man.
That's right.
Yep.
And he got the role of the Doctor only because he appeared as Commander Maxwell in The Ark of Infinity with
Yep.
Peter Davison.
Yep. June 9th, Natalie Portman, actress. Evie in V, she was Padme, and Academy Award-winning Black Swan, was considered for the part of Black Widow.
Oh, really?
At one time, yeah.
You know, I think she works better as Jane
Yep.
in the Thor films, and she will be back in the new Thor film.
Yep. And when living in New York City, she would unwind by singing karaoke in a bar in Chinatown.
Okay, good for her.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad she did that. Good for her.
Yep. Michael J. Fox, actor and activist, Family Ties, Back to the Future, was diagnosed with Parkinson's at the age of 29.
Too young. Way too young.
Yep. Aaron Sorkin.
Oh, wow.
Writer. Oh, my gosh. Writer extraordinaire. He wrote West Wing and Newsroom.
Yeah.
And a couple of other things. And just incredibly intelligent writing and intelligent characters and very realistic.
His series, you know, the any TV series that he has helped to create and helped contribute to as a writer is worth your time.
Yep. Cole Porter, not singer, but songwriter. He was a closeted gay man who married for appearances. Wrote classics like Night and Day, I Get a Kick Out of You. He lived at the Waldorf Astoria Tower from 1939 to 1964.
Oh, wow.
And wrote the musical Kiss Me, Kate. Mm-hmm. Yep. And James Newton Howard, composer of film scores. And Les Paul, I wrote down famous guitar man.
Well, gee.
What do you say about Les Paul?
The man,
oh my gosh.
The man was a genius. He's another one of those guitar geniuses. You've got Gibson made a guitar for him that's now the Les Paul Gibson guitar. And I think my stepdad said that the best thing he ever heard Les Paul do was the duets that he did with Chet Atkins.
Oh, wow. Yep. And then we have a friend of ours, Danny Roberts, who is a
Atomic Cowboy.
Atomic Cattle Drive.
Cattle Drive, that's
yes. His comic book that he has written, and he gets better over time, as everybody does. I mean,
his
art is really kind of neat.
We were at a wine bar in Cottonwood, and we actually got to see the progress of his work because it's like on the wall.
Yep.
There, and you saw it from its beginnings to its later stuff, and you could really see how good it continually progressed.
Yep. June 10th, Judy Garland. What else needs to be said about Frances
our Judy?
Gum?
Our Judy.
Yep. Our Judy. Exactly. She was a force of nature and lived a
terrible life.
A troubled life.
Yeah.
I mean, from beginning to end, and and I won't say that all of it, or even I would say a majority of it was not her fault.
I think she was a victim of a lot of bad things. I mean, the way her parents, the studio. Oh my God, the studio was terrible to her.
Her mother used her, and oh my gosh, yeah. But she was a good singer, a good actress.
Oh, she was a very good singer.
She was on.
Yeah.
And then we have Jurgen Prachnav, actor, Dune. Mm-hmm. He was the Duke Leto Atreides. He suffered burns to his cheek filming a scene in Dune.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. I'm sure it was the scene where the Duke was Baron
Harkonnen poking at his skin or something like that.
I'm sure that was the scene. Dustin Lance Black, writer. He wrote the film Milk, and he's a writer and creator of When We Rise and Big Love. Out gay man married to Tom Daly, and they have one child.
Oh, good for them.
And João Gilberto, musician, pioneer of the bossa nova, famous for Girl from Ipanema, which is now firmly stuck in my brain again. I was obsessed with it here about 2 months ago.
I remember.
I listened to every version of Girl from Ipanema.
Only one he couldn't find was the Pig Latin version by Ben Stiller. I need to get together with you. I need to ask Eugene where that is, because I think he still has it.
It was. Then we have Barbara Dillon, one of the nicest people that you will ever want to meet.
She's a sweetheart.
And has 2 twin
They have twins.
girls that are like 6 months old now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they're just adorable. And that is Barbara Dillon of Fanbase Press. Yes. And Evo Terra, Facebook friend of ours and friend of ours from podcasting and the Phoenix Podcasters Club.
Right.
June 11th, Peter Dinklage, actor, most popular now for Game of Thrones.
True.
I think we first saw him in the movie Death at a Funeral.
Probably.
And then, several other things. He's a vegetarian. And anytime that he is eating a meat product in a film or
probably a soy
TV
product
series
or something.
is a tofu product. And refuses roles where dwarfism is demeaned, which is only right.
I can get
it's great.
that. However, I did see him in one movie, I can't remember which one it was, where there was some kind of a joke. It was not meant to be nasty, but at the same time, it was there, and he was able to kind of turn that around, and in a way, it kind of showed his enormous sense of humor.
Yep. And by all counts, he is a very likable person. Most of his fellow cast members,
Everybody loves him.
think he's just pleasant and likable. And on Game of Thrones, they found it very hard to shoot scenes where they had to mistreat him.
I can believe that.
And he and Lena Headey were actually roommates. They shared an apartment together.
Oh, really?
And would drive back and forth to the set, even though they were enemies.
Bitter
on set.
enemies on the
Yes,
show. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's interesting. Gene Wilder.
Oh, my God.
Actor. What is there to say about the genius that is Gene Wilder?
Love Gene Wilder.
Yep. Risa Stevens, an opera singer of the 40s and the 50s. She was the director of the Met's secondary touring company in the 60s. Which spawned all of the people in their early careers from the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. She died in 2013 at the age of 99.
Whoa.
Yep.
Okay.
She was a great singer. Then we have a Facebook friend and author friend of ours, Christy Hartman, or should we say Dr. Christy Hartman.
We need to talk to her again and see what she's doing these days.
And John Culver, Jeff Lynn, and Sharon Landis, who is the board chair for Arizona Opera. June 12th, Jim Neighbors,
Golly.
actor, Gomer Pyle primarily, was said to be Carol Burnett's good luck charm. He was in every premiere episode of each season of Carol Burnett.
I didn't know that.
And it came out at the age of 82 when he married his partner of 38 years in 2013.
Although it was like one of the worst kept secrets in Hollywood.
Well, that's true. He made 46 albums during his career. He was primarily a singer.
Yeah, a really good singer.
Yep. And Richard Sherman, songwriter primarily for Disney, Mary Poppins, and he and his brother did Mary Poppins, and Feed the Birds was Walt's favorite song.
I think also there's this little ditty that is in Iron Man 2 that he wrote. It's during the World Showcase that we see.
Oh, yeah.
There's a little history scene with Howard Stark.
Right.
And there's something that it's just, it's kind of like an homage to a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
Right. And, that whole scene is more, it's
very Disney-esque.
It's kind of Walt presenting Epcot.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Really is kind of funny. And then John Wetton, singer, songwriter, musician, King Crimson, and Asia.
We got to see him not long before the man tragically passed away.
That was a great concert.
It was a fabulous show.
We were like second row, but the first row was one seat.
I know. In reality, we were the first row. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And that was in the round.
In the round, yeah.
So
although they weren't turning.
But they weren't turning.
No, because of the gear setup wouldn't allow it.
June 13th, Chris Evans,
I
actor.
Love this guy.
Johnny Storm in Fantastic Four and Captain America for all intents and purposes.
Okay,
the previous Captain America.
Now, so let's get a little gay here. We've got to admit that scene in Captain America: The First Avenger when the capsule opens up and we see the new Steve Rogers.
Oh my.
Holy moly.
Exactly.
I mean, oh my God, drool is pouring out of my mouth. I mean, it's gorgeous. But the Chris Evans as a person is a really, really good guy.
Yeah, he's a huge supporter of the LGBTQ community, and just a great guy all around. Stellan Skarsgård, actor, Eric Selvig in MCU in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he's also playing Baron Harkonnen in the new Dune.
That's right. I'm very curious about that.
That could be very interesting. And Tim Allen, actor, while I don't agree with his politics, his work is just been incredible.
I really do love him in the
Yep.
Santa Claus, especially the first two films. I
Yep.
think they're beautiful.
And Buzz Lightyear.
Oh, yeah.
And Galaxy Quest.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Paul Lynde, actor on Center Square of Hollywood Squares.
I have to feed the kitties.
One-liners, yes. Didn't you tell that story recently?
I think I did tell that story recently.
Yeah, but
Maybe I told it to just some people in a room.
yeah, but everybody's heard the story about Paul Lynde and coming out of the store and in
Wearing
his
a caftan.
into his limo
And bumps into a friend of ours,
And
and
says-
who they kind of stare at each other for a few seconds, and he says, "I have to feed the kitties."
Yep. James Clerk Maxwell, a mathematician and scientist, the second unification in physics of electricity and magnetism as electromagnetism. He helped usher in the era of modern physics, which was, quantum mechanics and general relativity.
Yeah.
So his...
Just one step away from unification.
Exactly. And the first unification was Isaac Newton. And actually, when Einstein visited a museum for Maxwell, somebody at one of the universities, I don't recall. I didn't write it down, so now I'm struggling to remember the incident and the facts. But somebody said, "You're standing on the shoulders of Newton," and Einstein said, "No, I am standing on the shoulders of Maxwell." So
okay.
he was a huge influence on Einstein's work. Mary Wicks, actress. Character actress, usually playing some wisecracking foil of the main character. And she was, in everything. She was
True.
in White Christmas.
Yep.
And she calls herself, says, it's hard to get to this old biddy or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Yep. And Siegfried Fischbacher of Siegfried and Roy fame. We saw Siegfried and Roy in, oh my gosh. Crazy story.
That's insane.
Crazy story. But we wound up with tickets inside.
In the pit.
In the pit. And I was sitting right next to the stage that goes out and around.
Yeah, it's
And
like a
as
walkway.
The tigers walked right by me. Yep. And he died, sadly, in January of this year at the age of 81.
Oh, Siegfried died. I knew that Roy had died.
Yep,
I didn't know
Siegfried
Siegfried had died.
in January of this
Oh.
year. Yeah. Yep. And then Mary Whitehouse.
Oh, dear.
The famous, or rather infamous, haranguer of the British media for all sorts of imagined ills on TV.
And the subject
She was-
of great scorn from Roger Waters in the Pink Floyd song Pigs.
Yeah, she was the censor and moralist and all of that kind of stuff that was in the primarily 60s, 70s, and into the 80s. She just didn't want to see Britain progress in any form or fashion.
She was really harsh on part 3 of the Deadly Assassin episode from Doctor Who.
So, and then Facebook friend and a former director of education for Arizona Opera, Joshua Bort. And that's it for the birthdays this time, and the girl from Ipanema.
Technorama, the podcast for geeks, because geeks are better than cool. You don't hear someone say, "Get away from me, you cool person." Who's gonna have their 65-inch home theater system installed by the Cool Squad? Not me, that's for sure. How much cool cred do you have? Not enough to care about. Think you'll find any canned unicorn meat at thinkcool.com? It's just a part domain name. They don't even have roadkill in a paper cup. That's why you need to start listening to Technorama, because that's what geeks do. Go to chuckchat.com and listen to Technorama before you turn cool.
Go give a listen to our friends Chuck and Craig over at Technorama Podcast.
I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counselors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org.
We want to give a shout out, as always, to the Joshua Tree Feeding Program. They are a 501c3 nonprofit food pantry for the HIV and AIDS community in Maricopa and Pinal counties, as well as now for the gender non-conforming community. They set it up like a store so that clients can pick and choose the foods they want, and it empowers them to choose only the foods they want, so nothing is wasted. They have their regular distribution day and a second distribution time for the gender non-conforming community that may be experiencing food insecurity regardless of HIV status. Please help the Joshua Tree Feeding Program by going to jtfp.org.
And it's time for our feedback, and each of the articles that generated these comments will be featured in the show notes for this episode number 329 at our website, tggeeks.com, starting with, regarding Hamish Downey's 5 questions with McKay Collins. Got a comment from McKay Collins on Instagram, who wrote, "Did you check out the interview I did with Hamish Downey of TG Geeks? If you think I did a good job, give us a like." Hamish responded with, "You gave a great interview. Love. Thanks again." Moving on, regarding Andrew's Angle Without Remorse delivers a stale story but with emotional acting. Got a comment from Hamish, who writes, "I haven't heard many good things about this one. I heard it was very long in development. It's strange considering how many good movies get made out of Tom Clancy's books. But maybe this one was just too difficult, or just a case of too many cooks, aka development executives, spoiling the broth."
You never know.
You never know. Moving on, regarding Hamish Downey's 5 questions with Ace Artemis. Got a comment again from Ace. From Hamish, bleh, who writes...
From Hamish.
From Hamish.
Hamish.
Yeah.
Hermanus.
Hermy. Yeah. No, got to come from Hamish, and he writes, "Definitely one for the fans of the fan art of the tarot sequence by Katie Edwards." Yay. So true. And then we got a comment from Ace Artemis, who writes, "Thanks for the interview." Moving on, regarding TG Geeks episode number 324, got a comment from John Berardo, who we interviewed in that episode, and he left us on Instagram, and he just simply said, "This was such a blast." Moving on, regarding Becoming Cruella featurette, released to tease movie premiere May 28th. Got a comment from the Fizz Popcast radio show on Instagram. I'm not sure if this was either Hamish or Becca who wrote this, but the comment is, "While I loved Wicked, I'm not sure how many of these retcon films we really need." Hold on to your hats. Moving on, regarding Hamish Downey's news, Sushi number 117, Morsels of News from Japan and Beyond. Another comment from Hamish, who just simply says, "Thank you for sharing, Ben." Yeah, okay. And then we close it off regarding TG Geeks episode number 325, where we interviewed Mary of Rune and Brand's Yard Sale, as well as Katie Edwards. And we got a comment from Mary of Rune and Brand's Yard Sale on Twitter, and she writes, "Chatting with Katie Edwards, the Two Gay Geeks, Ben Raggington, and Keith Lane for this podcast. It was so fun and happy, and I'm so glad to be a part of all of this. Have a listen. Thank you." And that is our feedback.
If you want to leave a comment, you can do that on our Facebook page, where you can comment on everything that we post there, as well as at tggeeks.com on each article, or or episode. You can also comment on Twitter and Instagram. You can also leave us a voicemail, and we would love that. We would play that on air. You can call 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. And as always, please play nice. Well, as everybody knows, we're huge supporters of independent creators, whether it's filmmakers, comic book artists, writers, or others. Yes, please talk about them to other people. Look at their stuff. Look at their Instagram pages, their Etsy pages, their Facebook pages, their websites. Buy their stuff and chat them up. They're really neat people. Please consider supporting independent creators. And we have a really interesting thing. Starting on July 1st, we would really appreciate your vote in the People's Choice Podcast Awards. We'll be in the newly created LGBTQ category, and
really
more info to follow.
Oh, that's good news. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, you can check out at Podcast Awards on Twitter, and I think it's podcastawards.com. There's nothing up there but the signing up. So on July 1st, you can start voting, and we would appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you are trans or are questioning your gender identity, and if you are in crisis or are feeling isolated and need someone to talk to, or you know of someone in a similar situation, there is a special hotline just for you. The hotline is provided by translifeline.org and staffed by trained counselors who are transgender themselves. The hotline in the U.S. is 877-565-8860. In Canada, it is 877-330-6366. Or you can go to translifeline.org to learn about the important work they are doing. Please reach out for help. You are not alone.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, you know. They're two gay guys and they're geeks. Is that okay?
Well, we're really running low on time, but we got to talk about
Oh my
Cruella.
gosh. Oh my God, what a wonderful film.
Yeah,
I loved it.
We only watched it. Well, I kind of pushed for it because Devette C., who lives in L.A., she wrote a review for us, and I read the review and became immediately intrigued with seeing this film.
Yep.
So we got it.
Decided to buy it.
I bought it.
Or did the...
I did the Premiere Access purchase on Disney
my
Plus.
gosh, I'm so glad you did.
I'm glad I did. I was
was-
very nervous for this film.
Yep. It is a great film, and both of the Emmas did a fabulous
I could
job.
not love these two women more.
Oh my gosh.
I really couldn't. And I think the movie is just fantastic.
It's not a traditional retcon.
No.
It's something completely different.
This is an alternate universe Cruella.
Yeah, exactly.
I like this Cruella
Yeah,
a lot.
a lot.
I really, really dig her. She is so awesome. And Emma Stone just owned this movie from top to end. I loved it. I just loved it. If you have a chance to see it, please go see Cruella. You will not be sorry. And it's time for our weekly review. These are the items that we ran on our website at tggeeks.com, and the links for each of these will be found in the show notes for episode number 329 on our website at tggeeks.com, starting with Sunday, May 30th. Excuse me, Nudie Chupacabras. Nerdy. I did it again.
You always say nudie.
I always want to say nudie. It's the chupa.
Yeah.
If it was a chupacabra, I'd then easily be a nerdy
chupacabra.
No, it'd be a nerdy chupacabra. Number 50. Okay, Tommy Cannon, you got to change it now. Monday, the 31st, TG Geeks episode number 328. On June 1st, Tuesday, Devette C's movies. Cruella, not an origin story. On Wednesday, the 2nd, Julia Scotti, Funny That Way, a documentary by Susan Sandler. This is about a transgender comedian.
Exactly.
It's really interesting.
For Pride.
On Thursday, June 3rd, The Boss Baby Family Business in theaters and on Peacock streaming service July 2nd. On Friday, June 4th, Hamish Downey's 5 Questions with Belle Adams. And on Saturday the 5th, This Got Made. hosted by Carlton Tetley, Season 2, Episode M, Fun and Games.
And that is the last episode in Season 2 for them.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Have some shout-outs that we need to make. First, to the Arkle Times Post-Dispatch News for republishing our content from time to time is put up by the human Arkle, put up by Brian Weber. He likes to switch up his Arkle every now and then on Twitter. But you can find him by just searching for Arkle, at A-R-K-L-E. And while you do that, look for him on YouTube. He's got a lot of things going on there. Lots of stuff. He has his Shameless Cash Grab series, which is now in Season 6. His Rants vs. Zombies series, which has ended, but the past episodes are still there, as well as an Arkle article. Arkle tier ranks, various things, as well as his game videos of Trick and Treat and Star Trek Online. And while we're doing this, let's give some shout-outs to some Facebook groups. First, Two Gay Geeks After Hours for literally saying we can share away our content. Their URL is facebook.com/Gay Geeks After Hours, and then To The Gay Geek for the same reason. Their URL is facebook.com/group/The Gay Geek. And as always, we give special thanks to their moderator, Jeremiah Reeves.
Thank you, Jeremiah. And other places we are found is Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Amazon Podcasts, as well as where other fine podcasts can be found. Also, check us out on Sci-Fi Radio, formerly Krypton Radio, at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesdays. Listen to their other content. They're a 24-hour geeky sci-fi internet radio station. Please rate us and review us on iTunes. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We're going to have several links on the page and of things we talked about. And remember to comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com, or leave us a voicemail of 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I'm Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. Please be kind to yourself and those around you. Please get vaccinated. Be safe. Cheers.
Cheers.
Peace. Sorry.